Stop worrying so much.
Just let it go.
You're too hard on yourself.
It begins as a quiet whisper, a simple question about what could go wrong or what someone else might have meant by an offhand comment. But for me, that whisper quickly grew into a thunderstorm of doubt, self-criticism, and endless analysis. Overthinking was not just a habit, it was a lifestyle that clung to me like a shadow. For years, I thought it was just my way of being cautious or thorough. I didn't realize it was stealing my peace and my ability to live in the moment. This is my story, one man's journey through the labyrinth of overthinking. It is an honest account of how it shaped me, hurt me, and ultimately, how I began to overcome it. I can't pinpoint when it started, but I remember the moment I realized I was trapped. I was sitting in a coffee shop, replying to a conversation I had earlier that day with my boss. He had mentioned, in passing, that I needed to be more proactive. Those words gnawed at me. I dissected them, looking for hidden meanings. Did he think I was lazy? Was he hinting at dissatisfaction with my work? Should I prepare for a performance review? That evening, I couldn't sleep. My thoughts spiraled, branching from my boss's comment on the possibility of losing my job, to disappointing my loved ones, to being seen as a failure. It was exhausting, but I couldn't stop. The more I tried to solve the problem in my head, the deeper I sank into uncertainty. Overthinking had become my reflex. Every decision, every interaction, was subjected to this internal scrutiny. The mental energy it consumed was staggering. I began avoiding situations that might trigger it. But life, as I quickly learned, doesn't offer escape routes. Over time, the toll became evident. Overthinking robbed me of joy and spontaneity. A simple walk in the park could be overshadowed by thoughts of whether I was doing enough with my life. Social gatherings became minefields of potential misunderstandings. Relationships suffered. I was so consumed by analyzing every word and gesture that I failed to simply be present. Even my health began to show strain. Sleepless nights turned into chronic fatigue. My appetite waned. The constant state of mental tension left me irritable and disconnected. Yet the worst part was the isolation. I felt like no one understood what I was going through. When I tried to explain, people would offer well-meaning advice. Just let it go, or stop worrying so much, if only it were that simple. The change didn't come overnight. It began with a breakdown. One of those moments when life forces you to confront your limits. I had spent weeks agonizing over a presentation at work. When the day finally came, I was so consumed by anxiety that I stumbled through my slides, forgetting half of what I had prepared. Afterward, my colleague, someone I barely knew, approached me. "You're too hard on yourself," she said gently. "You've got great ideas, but you're so busy second-guessing that you get in your own way." Her words struck a nerve. I realized she was right. Overthinking wasn't protecting me. It was sabotaging me. For the first time, I allowed myself to see it as a problem, not a personality trait. The path to overcoming overthinking was neither straight nor easy. It required me to confront deeply ingrained habits and beliefs. I can say with honesty that I've made progress. Here's what helped me the most. 1. Awareness. I began by recognizing when I was overthinking. This sounds simple, but it was surprisingly difficult. Overthinking often felt like a normal part of my thought process. I started journaling, writing down my thoughts when I felt stuck. Seeing them on paper helped me realize how repetitive and unproductive they were. 2. Challenging my thoughts. A therapist introduced me to the idea of cognitive distortions in which our thinking can become irrational. For example, I often engaged in catastrophic thinking, assuming the worst-case scenario. Learning to question these patterns was transformative. Was my boss really dissatisfied with me, or was I projecting my insecurities onto his comment? 3. Practicing mindfulness. Overthinking thrives on dwelling in the past or worrying about the future. Mindfulness taught me to anchor myself in the present. Simple practices like focusing on my breath or noticing the sensations around me helped break the cycle of rumination. 4. Accepting uncertainty. This was the hardest lesson of all. Overthinking, at its core, is an attempt to gain control over uncertainty. But life is inherently uncertain. Learning to sit with that discomfort, to accept that I can't predict or control everything, was liberating. 5. Self-compassion. Perhaps the most important step was learning to be kinder to myself. Overthinking often stemmed from a fear of not being good enough. Replacing self-criticism with self-encouragement was a slow but powerful shift. Looking back, I see overthinking for what it was, a misguided attempt to protect myself. It came from a place of fear, but it also showed how deeply I cared about my work, my relationships, my life. The key was not to eliminate overthinking, but to channel that care in healthier ways. Today, I still have moments when my mind starts to spiral, but I've learned to recognize the signs and gently guide myself back. I've also learned to share my struggles, realizing that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a bridge to connection. To anyone seeing this who is feeling trapped in their own thoughts, you are not alone. Overthinking doesn't define you, and it doesn't have to control you. Healing is possible. It takes time, patience, and a lot of self-compassion. But the peace it brings is worth every step. I hope my story offers you a glimmer of hope and a reminder that even the most tangled minds can find clarity. If I can do it, so can you. Thank you for watching. Take good care of yourself. See you next time.